Thank you so much for staying with Monday Special. Before I introduce you to my panelists tonight, a little intro about what we're trying to delve into tonight. Up until the late 1970s, men's and women's roles were fairly well defined. Recent years show the line between male and female roles is becoming blurred. Men are taking a more active part in, say, homemaking and child rearing, and women are thriving in the business world. Some articles have gone on to condemn this, saying that this is emasculating men, rendering them somewhat confused as regards their role in society. An article in the Daily Nation even asked, is anyone thinking of an Okor Men initiative? So while we'll be discussing whether the line between male and female roles is becoming blurred, we'll also be talking about how to raise a generation of great men. I'll now introduce you to my panelists. We'll start on my far left. We have Jennifer Karina. She is a relationship coach, Marriage Built to Last, her book, which has done very well in the market. She's also, of course, an author and very passionate about the roles of men and women. We have Flavor Mangula, who is a thought provoker and a marketer, a mentor who has also told me that he's very passionate about especially talking to men. Then we have Baraka Njage right next to me on my right. He's an entrepreneur. And then right next to Baraka, we have Mel Miendo, who is a journalist. Thank you all so much for coming on Monday Special. All right, Flavor, you just heard that short intro. So do you think that it's true that there's a crisis facing men, that the world now belongs to women?
Well, thanks, Jennifer, for your question. I think the male human being, for lack of a better term, has been relegated to a very, very secondary position in society.
Secondary position?
A very secondary position. This, of course, has come around. I think the girl child was given a lot of focus, and the male child was given secondary focus. And we all know that any bird or plane that flies on one wing actually will go in circles. So I think the man has been totally relegated to a position where they're inferior, and they're not stepping up to the plate to be able to be leaders, to be priests in their homes, to be providers. And when I say provider, I mean not only providing for finances, but providing leadership, providing counsel, providing wisdom in the home. And that space in the family is lacking, and that's why we're seeing a lot of vices coming up from the family unit. Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's a very interesting perspective, a very strong one as well. And I know later on we'll be trying to navigate how do we then, so to speak, re-empower the man. Maybe I can throw the same question to Jennifer. Do you think there is a crisis facing men in society in the sense that they feel, like Flavor has said, they've been relegated to secondary position, and there hasn't been a lot of focus on the role that men can play, especially in their homes?
Well, I don't really think so, Janet. What I do know is that times have changed, mainly because generally women are nurturers, and they initially were really in the home to nurture their children. And as the times have gone, they have become more in the marketplace. But that does not remove the space for the man. I do know that the man feels threatened because of the economically empowered woman, but I see it as complementary roles, and that's what it ought to be. However, some of the men have been raised without fathers, and I think the situation is that they do not know how to stand and be a man because the influence has lacked in their life. I think before I hear from Baraka and Mel on that, complementary roles, do you think there's a space where men can, many can say, you know, times have changed, even economic times, the women are empowered, but it doesn't mean we can't complement each other as opposed to one feeling threatened by the other? Do you think that's something?
Well, I think, as Jennifer was saying, I mean, it's not a matter of threatening per se. From the space I'm sitting, I don't think the woman is such a powerful human being. I respect women for how they can be able to juggle so many things at the go. And I always think that a woman who wants to be like a man lacks ambition. Man, as a male human being, can only do one or two things at the same time. And their role as heads of homes is to lead, guide, protect. And again, when I say protect is to protect the dreams of the wives, of the ladies, protect the dreams of the children, protect the dreams of the family per se. When I say maybe as a prophet in the family, you're supposed to then see the future of your children, see the future of the family, and be able to profess that within the family unit. So it's not really a matter of competition, and I agree with Jennifer, it is complementary, but again, as she says rightfully, is that there's just been no mentoring per se. And mentoring is not a situation where one is above the other. There is peer-to-peer mentoring. Men posture, they are ego beings. They want to ride the big car that their friends are riding. They want to drink the drink that their friend is drinking, without realizing that at home there is a very huge vacuum that you need to fill as a man.
We'll talk about mentorship later, because that's really crucial. I think I'd like to throw the same question to the two of you. You're essentially millennials, I would say, so because you're in your 20s. So what are your thoughts on whether or not there's a crisis, Baraka, with regards to the role that a young man like yourself is supposed to be playing in society? Do you feel as if your role is threatened? Do you feel confused about what exactly you're supposed to be bringing to the table?
I think I would look at it generally, and I'll actually agree with both of them. There is an aspect of the whole conversation about mentorship and being taught what it means to be a man. Now, a lot of people in my generation do not understand. A lot of men do not know what it actually essentially means to be a man. Is it the number of ladies that you've been with? Is it how much you're able to drink? Is it how much you own? Is it by the time you've reached a certain age you have this blue Subaru? I know there's a lot of that going around. And I think there has been a gap of, you know what, and older people actually coming and saying, this is what it means to be a man. It means to be a protector. I mean, I've been in situations where I'm in a matatu, and you know the way you're getting in as a lady, and then the conductor is holding you and he's almost forcing and carrying you inside. And as a man, there's the feeling of, I need to protect this lady. And so you speak up and say, hey, don't put your hands on that lady. I may not know her, but she could very well be my sister. Or even financially, I think in terms of providing, yes, we've come into a dispensation where women will either earn the same, or many times even earn 2 times as much as you earn as a man. But there's still a role that you can play in that kind of a situation. But we haven't had older people or even our peers actually come and have those kind of conversations. Let
me get Mel's comment before I take this back to Favor. Your thoughts?
Okay, so she talked about complementary roles. He talked about mentorship. Jaggi here is talking about how, you know, providing leadership and protection. So as a young lady, and a single lady at that, I think the empowerment has been too much that we are forgetting what complementary roles are about. Because what happens now is that single women are up there, and to get to them is so hard, you know. And guys are I think they've gotten used to the fact that ladies are earning better, they're getting themselves together, so we don't really have to match up to that. So they become lax. So the problem is they're not intentional about actually being that man. And so even when you talk about mentorship, they don't receive that guidance. So it becomes a problem. I think there's actually a crisis.
Okay, crisis.
Because,
he's mentioned something very interesting. What does it actually mean to be a man? What do you think it means to be a man?
Well, Janet, to be a man is to be a leader, to be, like I said, a provider. A prophet, a priest in your home, basically playing the role where it doesn't matter whether your wife earns more than you do. At the end of the day, you have to provide leadership. You have to come back to a space where you can be able to guide her, be able to nurture her. Do not feel threatened by the fact that she's earning more, she's working in a better organization than you are. You as a father, as a man in that house, provide the leadership that is needed, because that's what God intended it to be. Let me give you an example from the Bible. There's this man called David, who was an adulterer, he was a killer, he was a bandit, basically. And he led a band of bandits. Yet, in this conundrum of negative adjectives, God still saw something that he called a man after my own heart. And we want the ladies to be able to see this in their men as well.
Okay.
It's irrespective of how your man is, see greatness in your man. Raise him up.
I was going to ask Jennifer and Mel, are we as women placing too many unfair expectations or putting too much undue pressure on men, so that they, as you know, Baraka and Favor have kind of alluded to, a sense that they almost feel like, okay, I'm trying to lead you, I'm trying to guide you, but you're almost fighting me on it, or you're trying to lead on your own because you've been empowered so much. What role can we play, or do we play as women, to sort of ascertain or uphold them as leaders?
Well, Janet, one thing comes to mind, that as the man has his position as the leader of the home, to bring it in context, it begins with marriage. And it begins where that it is not good for a man to be alone, and God will provide for him a suitable companion. So this person comes to be a companion of this person. Now, this companion needs to be one that plays his role well, respectful, caring, loving, giving, present, all those things. Now, in the absence of that, then it's difficult to be respected by the other person. And that's what it's all about. Fine, you can be a sinful within your nature as you are, but when you do not hold fort your position, then you lose your right to be the leader. And that is where now it goes wrong, because you want to be all those things. You know, you lead by example. You are the leader, you're the role model, you are the one who's the protector of the family. If you're not there, and it's actually about being absent as fathers. But I see the greatest challenge in single parenting, because more and more girls are choosing to be single parents because I really don't care about a man. I can have my own child, I can raise my own child, and all that. Research is very clear and clearly documented that a child that has not been brought up by a father figure does not grow well in terms of intellect, in terms of academics, you know, in terms of social.
Although I mean, it's not usually across the board. You're saying in more cases
in
than
most
not.
cases, they are challenged.
All right.
In most
you're talking about the home and marriage. Let's take it back to, you know, say singles or younger people. Do you get the sense that maybe men are very threatened by aggressive women who are doing well, and do we as women maybe not allow them to lead?
I'm
actually waiting to hear what you're going to say.
Like, what is she going to say?
Not fair. But Janet, honest truth is, we actually, as young women, have too many expectations, and then they are up there. These guys can't. It's hard for them, you know, to get to that. And the problem is, you know, when I say about a crisis, it's not just for men. I think even for women, there is a crisis. Because yes, we've been empowered, yes, we're earning, yes, we have it all together, per se, but also we don't know how to respect our men. We don't know how to treat them. And so when we talk about mentorship, going back to mentorship, I don't think it's just young men who need mentorship. Even we do. And the Bible also talks about older women training younger women to teach them how to do it. Because you see, what happens is, I go with my group of friends, you know, we're the same age. What we're talking about, we're not probably really helping each other, but, you know, maybe with an older lady, it'd be better, because then we get that guidance. But honestly, those expectations are
a bit too high.
I think that's what I was looking at me. Like, Mel, you have to say the truth.
I'm glad you did. Because I feel like there's something called the Peter Principle, and it's where someone is elevated to the position of the incompetence, where they're actually not able to perform to the role that they've been given, right? And I feel a lot of men growing up do not have role models. I mean, you look at the homeless children, 90% of homeless children do not have a father. You look at the people in jail, you look at people who are rapists or caught in crime. A lot of them have not had men that they could count on as fathers, right? So what happens is you grow up, and then you're given this responsibility of a woman and a child, and you're told these are the expectations, but no one ever actually came and told you this is what you're expected to do as a man. I like that he's mentioned provision, he's mentioned being a prophet, he's mentioned being a priest, he's mentioned being a protector. And I would like to believe that even now as we are talking, a lot of men do not know what those different terms mean, right? And there's a need for men to actually be taught from an early age. Because when you come to a 40-year-old man and you try telling him these principles, or a 30-year-old man, between the ages of 5 and 13, he's already picked up everything that he needs to continue with the rest of his life. But women actually, I feel, have a lot of those platforms. They're told, you need to cook, you need to take care of the children. She mentioned being a nurturer. Men, I do not feel, have that level of investment. So I would even dare say, whenever I hear people talking about the girl child at the expense of a boy child, my heart breaks, because what's happening is we're lifting one at the expense of the other. And these strong women are still getting married to weak men, right? So society is still very broken.
The vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's a very vicious cycle.
Okay, on feedback here on SMS, Chege from Kiambu says, the women are making it so difficult for men. Materialism is the source of power, and if you don't have the chums, you have no say, according to our ladies. That's his opinion. Gakinya from Matasio says, yes, it is we men who ought to mentor each other, but the absolute roles of the man are be a king, a warrior, a mentor, and a friend. Also, a real man takes initiatives, lives responsibly, loves faithfully, and leads sacrificially. And then finally, Mwende from Komarok says, times have changed. Men should support women in their dreams. I hope men don't feel threatened because they want to sit on women like the older generation. Okay, that's just some of the SMSs coming in. We'll have some tweets later on. Now, we've talked about some of the roles you say that men ought to play. Break it down, because like we had said before the break, some people may be lost with that. They may be saying, as Baraka said, you know, they haven't been raised that way. So where does one even begin to understand how to rethink his role in the home and in society?
Okay, so we are very deliberate in the way we look at it. When I say we, that I belong to a group of men called Muscles. We believe highly in the fact that we need to mentor each other. It's a safe space to come and say, I don't know, that I have failed. I need help. Hold my hand. Teach me these things. And at Muscles, and actually we're on Twitter at Muscles Kenya, and we encourage men to come. Listen, when we say that you're a provider, it's not only financial provision that God expects you to provide for the family. Like I said, you provide more than food. You provide wisdom, you provide counsel, you provide direction for the family. If it's protecting, it's just not physical protection. That is important. But you're protecting the dreams of your children, the dreams of your spouse. You're protecting their future as well, and securing them. Prophet, it doesn't mean you're just standing on a stool in the house and proclaiming prophecy, but you're saying to your child and your son, today you failed, but that's fine. What made you fail? Tomorrow I see you being a great person. You're professing also upon your spouse, your wife, and that's the whole essence of being a man. It's not about sitting and being a king and being served by your subjects in the house. No, the greatest leader has got to occupy the greatest space, which is being a servant. Yeah.
Let me interrupt you before then we'll go around and get closing comments. Someone might feel right now that they don't know how to reclaim that space in the home. They're feeling like they've been, to some extent, emasculated. Maybe that their leadership roles have been threatened. How does he then begin to rethink and claim that space again, just based on what we're saying tonight?
I don't think it's a matter of even just claiming the space. It's about sitting together with your wife or your spouse or your partner and actually agreeing on what has gone wrong. Where has he failed as a man? Men, accept that you failed. If your spouse tells you you failed, she's not against you. She wants to make the better man from you and out of you. And if you've been told you failed in certain areas, agree and see ways, it either be through counseling or through peer mentoring. Sometimes mentoring takes place in a moment. Sometimes it takes years. Agree to be in a mentoring relationship with other men who can be able to, mold you. And that creates a sense of now demarcation from who you are to who you need to be. And your wife can actually be one of your greatest mentors, actually.
All right, and finally, again, before we move to the others, you've mentioned earlier to me that you have 2 teenage sons. You're very passionate about mentorship. Tell me a little bit about your story summarized and why you feel mentorship is so crucial in raising a generation of great men.
So my son is 16 years old, and my daughter, I know she's watching, her name is Tamasha, she's 14. Where mentoring takes place, I mean, one of the greatest, one of the most important people in a girl's life is her father. And men can only learn how to be men from men. And those are the 2 balances that I create when I'm raising my children. I'm not saying that they're perfect children. However, I have raised them from when they were very young to understand what respect is, to understand their role. I'm raising my daughter to be a wife. She'll not be a wife on her wedding day. She's already a wife now. I'm giving her the mentoring that is required to balance her to become a wife who will be seen by a man of stature and take her and make her his wife. My son as well, I'm teaching him not to be a man. I'm not telling him do not raise your emotions to people. I'm teaching him how to cry. I'm teaching him how to say I have failed. I'm teaching him how to say I need help. There are times they come to me and I tell them Daddy doesn't know everything. Let us pray, God will give us the answers. And that's what mentoring in a home setting then provides from a child perspective and also from the man perspective.
Very powerful. Okay, afterwards we'll get that Twitter handle again. Jennifer, as we wind up, your thoughts on mentoring maybe young women. He's talked about many, yes, he has a daughter, and Mel has alluded to this as well. What is the role then in mentoring or speaking to young ladies about upholding the roles of men in society while also not feeling like they're being stepped on or feeling like they're lesser human beings, but really understanding that the men are essentially sort of placed as leaders?
Well, it's important because the way you raise up your children is what they eventually become. In fact, the Bible is very clear that bring up your children in the ways of the Lord, and when they mature, they'll not depart from these ways. Now, one of the challenges that I see in this generation is that they have attitude of feeling, you know, I am there, I am better, I have this career job, and so this marriage and all that, looking down on that issue about marriage and relationships. And I'll just put it very plainly. The way you bring up your daughter, even as Flavor is talking about raising a daughter to be a wife, I'm impressed by just that comment, because what happens is as children are growing up, they need to understand that marriage is a developmental stage in life, and it will come. When it does come, who do you get to marry? And it's no longer, I think that part has been missed out because we are raising career children. We want them to excel in career. We want them to be wealthy, to be rich. But we don't let them know that family is important. And this is it's about generations. It is passed down from a generation to another. If my grandmother doesn't pass down the value to my mother, and my mother passes it on to me, and I pass it on to my children, and it continues, that's where it goes wrong. Because we talk only about what I can do. You need to think beyond your grandchildren. So whatever you are actually passing on is really not just for your children. It ought to be for your children's children.
All right.
The minute you don't think about your children's children, you lose it out totally.
Thank you so much for that. Very powerful as well. Thank you for that. Your thoughts, Mel, as we wind up.
Wow. First of all, wow. I think everything you guys are saying is so true. And what comes to mind is, first of all, the role of men in society is huge. But it doesn't mean it's not attainable. Because even when we talk about those who don't understand or don't know where to start, there's always somewhere you can begin. It may not have been like that for everyone with their parents, you know, but there's still always somewhere to begin. So when I think about what husbands' role, their role is, like love your wives, the Bible talks about husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church, and then we are told as women to submit. But who am I submitting to, you know? And then as a man, who is he loving? Because then it has to be complementary, as she had mentioned earlier. And so for me, when I think about this is, as I mentioned before, intentionality. Am I intentional about being a young woman who is actually going through the process of getting to learn how to be better? Or even for men out there, are they intentional about becoming better? Because sometimes they're, you know, it just doesn't matter. I'm okay. I'm
Take
fine.
Me as I am. I'm
Take
good.
me as I am. And then the problem with our generation, with this generation, is that girls don't know their value. So, and guys are like, you know what? If you don't like me, I'll get someone else. You know, if you have too many expectations, I'll get someone else. No one wants to be better. But I also think that all is not lost. I mean, there's still hope. There's still so much. There's muscles. There's, you know, Jennifer, Karina here, who, and you know, even the mentorship for young women. There's young men like Burke and Jaggi here who are very passionate.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for that. I think you'll make a great partner someday. Great quality. Baraka.
I believe in something called self-fulfilling prophecy, which which is if you're told something over and over again and you believe it, it's actually what you'll become. So a lot of men have been told that they're dogs, they've been told that they're useless and they're spineless, probably by your first girlfriend, or when you know, it's like as she was mentioning, it's developmental, or by your dad. I think that a lot of people are told stuff like that from the people that they love. But there is hope, and I like whatever we've been talking about, because it actually shows that if you are honest and candid about where you are as a man, that you can actually begin making steps to progress. And I keep saying, where you are now is not where you're going to be a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, or a month, or a year, or even 5 or 10 years, if you are intentional and very clear about what you want and where you want to get. However, you need, as a man, and I think at this point I'll be speaking to the men of Kenya, you need to get to the point where you're honest with yourself. I am wrong, or I have failed, or I have not been the father I need to be, or I have not been the son that I need to be, and then get better progressively over time.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think we have some feedback on Twitter. Let's see if we can bring that up. Some of the tweets that you've been sending in using the hashtag Monday Special KE. Okay, let's take a look at those. All right, Billy Sadia says, roles are changing, not because women are growing horns. Life in this time now demands the roles change. Okay, let's see what Alan Juma Owan says. While women are swiftly moving to men's territories, men are stealthily walking into their new roles. Interesting. Okay. At Ibital, I think, number, I hope I've read that right. Gender equality is the main cause of the problem. Women think they can do better without men, which is not true. Okay, I think we have 1 or 2 more tweets here. Anna Cheng says, women have always been smarter than men. Claiming equality is an understatement. Wow. Favor and Bark are like, True masculinity and femininity are found in God's purpose for man and woman, not in traditional or postmodern liberal ways. Powerful views. This conversation, I think, can take so many different angles, but I think the important thing is starting the conversation. And I thank all of you for your very sober views and just kind of trying to guide people in the right way, that it's about looking at yourself and looking to mentors as well. Thank you all so much, and thank you for watching Monday Special. Keep the conversation going using the hashtag Monday Special KE on Twitter, 22422 on SMS. I'm Janet Bogwandisho. Have a good night.